think our films, they're all really driven creatively by the director, producer, writer, editor, cinematographer teams that come to us. And so each one has a really unique visual style and point of view, but they're all exploring the process of doing science. So I think often I'll laugh, or I'll be surprised, or I'm left wanting more. I love films about science that find humor in the science and in the process and experience of doing science. So I think a perfect pitch just always has something unique and special about it and leaves me kind of wanting to know where this idea came from. If I see a pitch that I really love, I'll reach out to the artist and I'll just get on the phone with them or a Zoom call, and I'll just try to learn as much as I can. I want to know the budget. I want to know the schedule. I want to know who the other partners are that are involved, where the other money is coming from, what kind of gap they're looking at. I want to sort of dig into more to the creative and make sure that, we're really aligned and we see the film in the same way, because I might have responded to a pitch and thought it was one thing, and then I start talking to the artist and it's something totally different. But if, we really get along, we're really seeing things eye to eye, we seem to be vibing, I'll take it to our small team at Sandbox. Greg, who's the director of Sandbox, and I will look at it. We'll share it with Sam and Patrick, the other two members of our team. And if all four of us respond well to it, then usually that's all we need to greenlight something. I think that traditionally, science storytelling with a capital S has always used these different tropes. So there's often a voice of God narrator who's going to tell you what the science is, and it's very didactic, and it's like telling you what to think. And there's often big CGI, computer-generated graphics that are always usually in like similar color pattern even. If you really need a narrator, can you turn that narrator into a character, into a personality? Our film Fire of Love, it's a love story. It's not about science, it's about two lovers who fell in love with volcanoes and each other and had a love triangle. And the film is told through the footage that they shot when they were on scientific expeditions. And it feels like a love story. It's, to us, a film about science and exploration, but it's really experimental if you're thinking about it in the context of other science films. We also have our film All Light Everywhere that won the special jury prize at Sundance for experimentation in nonfiction. And, that's an extremely experimental, creative film that's sort of constantly playing with, what's outside of the frame and what is the director and filmmaker's perspective on things. That's not at all your traditional science story. We launched in 2020, so obviously it's hard to know how many of our films will have big theatrical releases because there haven't really been theaters in the last couple of years since we started. But I think Fire of Love is a great example. It's experimenting with form, and yet there's something about it that has really connected with people. In part, I think, because it is such a visceral, passionate love story. And it's a love story between humans and nature. And it's National Geographic Documentary Films bought it out of Sundance. They're doing a big global theatrical release of it. Neon is going to release it in the US. We're releasing it all over Europe, and we'll see. We'll see what happens this summer. I mean, we're super hopeful that this film is, people are talking about it, going to the theaters, that it's got a big theatrical success. So yeah, that's our ultimate goal for all of our movies. We'll see. Yeah. I think that's a really hard question to answer because I don't think some science is like better than other science necessarily. And I think as a company, our mission is to make people more curious and not really to teach them science. I majored in ecology and evolutionary biology, so I love like all kinds of weird animal stuff. I did my thesis on cephalopods and wrote a paper on squid with the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History. So, a lot of like ocean, deep sea stuff I love, a lot of sort of human animal connections I love, learning new things. I mean, I worked on a short film about epigenetics, which I thought was really interesting, for example. I think that topics that sort of make me want to ask a lot of questions are the ones that I end up being drawn to. I think communicating climate change is one of the hardest things to do. The best way to do it is to do it on a really local level, and to talk about things that are important to specific people and specific communities instead of talking about like big global shifts and changes in, polar bears are dying and ice is melting. I think people respond better to, don't you want drinking water in your community for a long time? Well, here's what we can do to help get you that. I think that that's really the direction we should go in. And ultimately, I think, I don't know, it's gonna be all about sort of big solutions and thinking outside the box, because we're kind of a little bit screwed, I think. No, I think I think that the hard thing about climate change is it's slow moving. It's hard to really pin any one thing to climate change in a way that can't be sort of brushed off. And people have other things that they're worried about. It's just not something that most people have the time to really think about. And then it's sort of left in the hands of governments to really say, like, this is the most important thing. Climate change and protecting us for the future is more important than other things. And so we're going to make policies and make it expensive to drive and do things that create more carbon. And that is really like something I don't necessarily see happening, again, because people are like, well, I don't want my prices to go up, and prices are already skyrocketing, around the world. So I find it hard to be hopeful. It's a hard career to get a foothold in, and it sort of seems like it's different for where you are in the world. And there's so many different, like we've been talking a lot at Camp for Science about how everybody is coming from a different country where there's different funding opportunities. In the US, we have no public funding, so you have to go after, grants from institutions or private money, whereas it sounds like in parts of Europe, if you don't get the national funding, there's nothing else and you can't get anything else. And so the stories that you tell have to be specific to what those funders want. I think that if you really want to do it, just people seem to figure out how to do it. Part of the mission of Sandbox is to reach people who don't like science. And I think that in and of itself is not preaching to the choir. So some of our films are very science-y and very sort of, nerdy intellectual. Yes, probably the people who like science will want to watch them, but is almost more for the person who doesn't think of themselves as a science lover, but who's just interested in, the human story of it. It's often a chaos at Sandbox Films. We have about 23 films. Some of those are out already, and then a lot of them are in production and development, and we're a team of 4 people. So it's always just a million things going on. I travel a fair amount. I travel to film festivals and pitch forums to try to meet artists and find projects and tell people who we are. I think I've always just been passionate and sort of thrown myself into things and had a lot of energy. And I think one of the things that's gotten to me where I am is that I enjoy networking and meeting people. And especially when I was a freelancer for so long, I was just always having coffees, having dinners, having drinks with anyone that would meet with me for years and years and years. And that is really what sort of helped me get all those different jobs in television for a long time. Now it's helping me find the films that we work on because I'm using those same skills to reach artists, to connect with people, to find partners for Sandbox. I actually minored in college in theater. So I loved acting and musical theater and singing and dancing and all the things. I always liked to be good at things, and I was never that good of an actress. I think about Fire of Love and, some of the challenges with that. One thing that not everybody knows is that all of the 16 millimeter footage that we used for that film had no sound. I think the other really interesting thing about that movie is that we edited it in such a short time. Fathom is a project that I really love. It's one that I've really felt connected to from the beginning. And one really interesting conversation we had throughout all of Fathom was around the fact that the film has no whales in it. So all of the whales are, just little tails above the water or a little swish here and there. And you can hear the whales and you can hear the noises that they're making, but you never really see them. We all felt very strongly about it because it's not a film about whales. It's not a natural history film. It's a film about people trying to communicate with the natural world and trying to figure out, unlock these mysteries of what whales are doing under there. And it's very mysterious and you can't see them and you can't touch them. We're working on Penny Lane's next film. Penny has an amazing, funny voice, and this is a film about her personal journey to donate her kidney to a stranger. It's called Confessions of a Good Samaritan, and it's really exploring not only sort of the medical ethics and scientific history of organ transplantation and organ donation. We're working on a film called Nocturnes that's an immersive film about a woman in India who's studying moths. And she works with an indigenous man in the eastern Himalayas. And they set up huge screens of light in the middle of the night, and hundreds of moths are attracted to the light, and they study them. And it's just this immersive film where you're sort of in the jungle with them and experiencing the forest with them through their research.